he made more than $110 million during 13 NBA seasons, and millions more in endorsements. Now at age 33, Antoine Walker is a Guaynabo Met. His paycheck is not guaranteed past the end of March, but if he leads his club to a Puerto Rican League title this summer, he could earn $150,000. He needs every penny.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I lived a very expensive lifestyle. I took care of my family. I was very generous to my family and my friends.
How much of that money do you still have?
It all depends on how much debt I can get out of.
He had closets full of custom-tailored suits, and in Boston, his driveway was a showroom for luxury cars.
I had Bentley, had Mercedes.
And Walker says he spared no expense entertaining his entourage.
When I was younger, I used to travel with a lot of people, but probably 8 or 9 guys, and which is a very expensive lifestyle to live, because you're traveling the world. That's 8, 9 rooms. That's 8, 9 flights. When you go to dinner, that's a huge bill every night.
Walker built his mother this $2.5 million mansion in southwest Chicago. The house has an indoor pool, 10 bathrooms, and a full-size basketball court. His NBA riches also bought him this $3.1 million home near Miami and this $4.1 million condo in downtown Chicago. He's now trying to sell his homes to liquidate his assets. He has no choice.
How long did you think your money would last?
I mean, forever. I mean, when you make the kind of money that I've been able to make throughout my career, it should last you forever.
Walker told Outside the Lines he invested more than $10 million in these Chicago properties. 4 years later, he has almost nothing to show for it.
Probably shouldn't have ventured off into business ventures till I got out of my career, and chose to take a huge part of my money and put it into real estate.
Though he hasn't played an NBA game since 2008, Walker is still spending plenty of time around courts. Lenders have filed foreclosure actions against at least 14 of his investment properties, which include houses, condos, and apartment complexes. In Illinois alone, he's been pursued by at least 5 financial institutions for unpaid debts that at one point totaled almost $7 million, ranging from $150,000 he owed American Express for being delinquent on his credit card to $3.28 million owed on the mortgage for a foreclosed property in Chicago. Last July, his former agent, Mark Bartelstein, won a judgment against Walker for nearly $600,000 in unpaid fees. And, according to the latest court records, he's obligated to pay nearly $7,000 in child support to 2 women every month. Margaret Johnson, the mother of the oldest of Walker's 2 daughters, has known him since childhood. The two grew up together here on the south side of Chicago. In a telephone interview, she told Outside the Lines, Walker has never missed a child support payment and has a big heart. But for Walker, she says, money became the root of all evil, and she stopped being a fan of his once he became pro. She says he became addicted to gambling and ran through millions of dollars, taking care of more than 50 people who are now nowhere to be found now that he needs the help.
It was very hard for me to say no to people when they come ask me for something. And, I got burned a lot of times that way. People say, I need to borrow $50,000 for this deal. I'm going to give it back to you, and I never hear from him.
He should have been a lot smarter than he was.
Why?
Because he's street smart and he's book smart.
When former Celtics president Rick Pitino, who coached Walker at Kentucky, signed him to a 6-year, $71 million deal in 1999, Pitino gushed that Walker would never have to worry about money again.
I didn't factor in poor investments. I didn't factor in gambling. I didn't factor in recklessness of spending. It goes fast.
But this guy made $14.5 million one year. How could you blow that much?
Okay, $14.5 million. So now you have $8 million cash. Well, you've given your family $1 million. Let's say you gambled $1 million. You spent $1 million on your entourage. That's 3. Now you have another $1 million in poor investments. You have another $1 million to cars and household expenses. And so it goes, because it's the lifestyles of the rich and famous.
He was addicted to gambling. He loved the game. He loved the action.
Former Celtics forward and longtime broadcaster Cedric Maxwell recalls Walker, equipped with a satchel bulging with bills, taking on his well-heeled teammates in high-stakes poker games on the team plane.
He pulled the bands of money out, the hundreds, and they were, wrapped up with the little brand new band on it. And there were some times when I've seen Antoine have in excess of $100,000 that he was just carrying around.
I was a big gambler. I would bet a couple $1,000s a hand playing blackjack and things like that. So I betted big, I won big at times, and I lost big.
Maxwell recalls Walker was not a card player until he spent an off-season training with Michael Jordan. Maxwell says he watched the two play blackjack, wagering tens of thousands a hand after a 2001 preseason game at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut.
So they got down to about 150,000, something like that, about 100 down.
In the hole.
In the hole. And but by the end of the day, Michael Jordan had told Antoine these cards are going to change.
How much do you think being exposed to Michael and his ability to wager huge amounts affected Antoine's propensity to wager those same kind of amounts?
I think it was huge. I think that was the opening act.
So why couldn't Antoine pull off what Michael pulled off?
Because he ain't making that kind of money. He's not the swoosh guy.
Jordan declined to be interviewed for this story, and Walker scoffs at the notion that his bets were Jordan-esque, telling Outside the Lines, "I would never bet what MJ bet. Michael would have smacked the expletive out of me if I did that." Walker was a VIP in Vegas, where he says his fetish was craps and blackjack. Last July, he was arrested at Harrah's Lake Tahoe Casino and charged with bouncing 10 checks totaling $1 million to 3 Las Vegas casinos.
How do you get into gambling debt of that enormous magnitude of nearly $1 million? Tell me how that can happen to a person.
I established credit lines back in 2001. And you can ask for an increase. And just like anybody else, when you're in a competitive mode, you ask for an increase to chase your money, and it gets to a point where it gets out of control until they cut you off.
To avoid jail time, Walker agreed to a 3-year payment plan. He's required to pay back $1 million in debt at a rate of more than $21,000 a month.
I'm gonna work my hardest to make those payments, every payment on time, and hopefully I can move on from this disaster.
What Walker hasn't lost in casinos, he's managed to lose in Chicago real estate. He entrusted a man named Fred Billings to run his portfolio of properties.
What did you know about his history?
I didn't know much about his history. I just spent a lot of time together, hanging out. I mean, he was around us. He was kind of like a part of the crew, He was kind of, a part of the crew.
Under Billings' stewardship, mortgages were not paid, buildings were not repaired, and many became uninhabitable. Billings is out on bond after being arrested for running a mortgage scam. He faces felony charges of fraud, forgery, and theft.
How much did you manage what you had bought?
I obviously none actually. It cost me not the one out there doing that, not handling it myself. So everybody knows I love the city of Chicago, and and I never want people to think negative about me and think that I don't care.
Antoine Walker could have cared less.
Attorney Stephen McKenzie represents the city of Chicago in multiple lawsuits against Walker and his real estate company, Walker Ventures.
He's now a slumlord. He's no longer an all-star. He's just a slumlord.
Walker already owes the city of Chicago nearly $1 million in court-ordered fines for running his buildings into the ground. He ignored building codes and, as seen in these photographs taken by a tenant, was responsible for hiring untrained workers to make illegal and shoddy repairs. The city proved that Walker's negligence made some properties unsafe, causing tenants to flee, many in the middle of winter. One tenant, Kiwana Leftridge, lost everything she owned when her basement apartment was flooded by 2 feet of raw sewage.
His socks and shoes went floating around in feces and tissue and everything else that come out the sewer. I don't have $110 million. I would never have $110 million probably. So if I got $10, why would you take that away from me?
It's hurt me, hurt my reputation. Have people having mixed feelings about me, about a place that I grew up.
Mackenzie told Outside the Lines that Walker himself could face more than $4 million in fines for violations at this building alone, and that if he doesn't pay, the city will put liens on his property and garnish whatever assets he has left, which is why he's in Guaynabo, hoping to lead a perennial doormat to a Puerto Rican League championship.
When you think, Antoine, about making more than $100 million and not having it now, what do you think?
I'm disappointed in myself. I feel bad.
He needs to liquidate everything he has and get these creditors off his back and start fresh. All the cars need to be sold. The houses need to be sold. It's over. That lifestyle is over.
One thing that I did is I helped a lot of people that can't help me. And I think that's huge for, younger guys that's coming into the league. It's okay to help people, but you can't help everybody because a lot of people can't help you.